Well, we're here in Scotland, in Edinburgh, and the location, Maria Sledmere, is what?
Calton Hill.
And what's the background?
So we have the scenic landscape that is Edinburgh, capital Scotland, sometimes known as Athens of the North. Apparently they didn't finish this monumental collection though, so it's sort of like a failed Athens.
Did you say failed or veiled?
Failed.
Okay.
It's deliberately
And
ruinous.
that's Maria Sledmere. We also have Colin Hurd here. Hi, Colin. And Laynie Browne and Christie Williamson. And Jane Goldman is here.
Hello.
And Tessa Berring. Back to Tessa in a second. And Irene, Torra, Mohedano came to join us. What? Did I get it wrong again?
No, that's perfect.
I'm getting better. Who came to join us from Spain, and Leanne Browne, who came to join us from the great city, but never referred to as in Athens, New York, and also North Carolina, and Sophia DuRose. Hi, everybody. We're here to talk about, and if I get my way, celebrate, because I really like this poem, a poem from Tessa's book, Bitten Hair. I'm holding it up. Bitten Hair. And this poem, for those of you who are watching this conversation and following along, is on page 25. It's called Dreams Are Made with Vanishing in Mind. And Tessa, would you mind reading it? And then we'll just talk about it.
Dreams are made with vanishing in mind. Apples won't juice in my electric blender. I go swimming whenever I like though, and I'm a little afraid of dying. I have my reasons. Hair falling out and nearby bread knives. Cotton wool is perfect for soft daubs and for wrapping my small glass octopus. Have you noticed the way a horizon seesaws? How the stench of bruised fruit could well be something else.
Wow. Jane, would you just start anywhere and enter some first thoughts into the record?
I love this poem because it has bread knives in it.
It's got what in it?
It's got bread knives in it.
Bread knives, okay.
And whenever I see a poem by Tessa, I always think this is like blade after blade of amazing lyric line just slashing at you. And I always think of her poems as stabby poems, but in a very good way.
That's wonderful. Yeah. What a great way to start. We actually had the privilege of talking about this poem just the other day at your place, and it's also the first thing you pointed out, and I wondered if there's something wonderfully ominous about the appearance of all these knives in these poems. You're referring to it as knife-like in its writing.
Yeah.
Lovely. Maria, thought?
Sure. So kind of thinking about the relationship between like the delicate and the sharp, or like the tender and the fierce. Kind of thinking about, you know, when you say like swimming, like you slice through the water. So I was thinking about what the line is doing as a form of slicing, and that kind of picking up in some of the consonants or like trochees. Yeah, blender, dying. Yeah.
Colin, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I really love this poem. I love the title. I love the idea of dreams being made with vanishing in mind, as the idea that the dreams themselves will vanish, but also that the quality of dreams and the way they're made in the mind is a kind of quality of vanishing. And then I think in the poem itself, one of my really favourite words that when Tessa was reading it beautifully kind of kept calling out to me was just the word "and." So in that those two lines, hair falling out and nearby bread knives, and then cotton wool is perfect for soft daubs and for wrapping. The "and" felt like this kind of like cue to sort of slip, as if it was, you know, both indicating that there are nearby bread knives, but also that the hair is nearby bread knives and that the cotton wool is wrapping the small glass octopus. So I don't know, it just felt like that was part of the way that the poem had this kind of logic of slipping and kind of dreamlike logic.
Lovely. I want to throw out a question that subsequent speakers can ignore or take up. I've been thinking about this poem a lot. I bought this copy at a bookstore called Tell It Slant in Glasgow. Thank you, Christie. And I've been reading it. And this poem arrests me because, and it's true of other poems here, Tessa, the tone. I think I know what the tone is, but the next time I read it, it seems to have a different one. So I would love for people to take a stab, as it were, at the tone. Who wants to start? Christie, what's the tone?
It changes, I think. It begins like in the first two stanzas, like in the first stanza, apples want juice in my electric blender. It's kind of light. It feels light, maybe a bit chiaroscuro, but it feels kind of surreal. And then right at the end of the second stanza, and I'm a little afraid of dying. There's another and I love the little. I'm a little afraid.
What does the little do to the tone? Because if it were just I'm afraid of dying, it would be one thing.
I mean, everybody's, well, apparently not everybody, but like a lot of people are afraid of dying. It's a common thing, and it's sensible. I think it's right. But to be a little afraid of dying, it's almost more discomforting.
More afraid.
Yes,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Leanne, what tone? Or take it anywhere you want, but I'm curious about tone.
I feel like it's very quotidian in the beginning, like when you first wake up from a dream and you're just landing, you're in the kitchen trying to like center herself, and then it gets increasingly weird and synesthetic. By the end, it's like really has this smells, and like the little glass octopus appearing is like, I feel like that's an image from a dream. And I think the great thing about this poem is it's really hard to make a really good dream poem, and this is an amazing dream poem where it's like from a dream, but it's like manifest as a poem. It's really difficult to do.
Yeah. I want to call on Sophia next, talk about poem or about the effect of questions. Because it ends with two questions, two couplets of questions. But I just threw that at you. You can talk about tone if you like, or anything.
Well, I was going to talk about horizons, actually.
Okay.
I really like how the way a horizon seesaws, and I feel like all the lines appear in couplets except for I have my reasons. And I feel like that's kind of the horizon of the poem, because a horizon is something that's visible to all of us, but it always gets away from us, the closer we get to it, right? We can't actually reach it. And I feel like I have my reasons, like you don't tell us them though. So we approach the poem over and over again trying to like understand it, right? But it constantly kind of evades us. And I like that. It adds to, I don't think it's not sinister, but ominous. It adds to like this ominous tone.
What's your answer to the question? When you read it, you probably thought of an answer, right? Have you noticed the way?
Yes.
You have.
Yes.
Good to know. Irene, what are your thoughts about questions or tone?
I go back to tone. I really loved how Tessa read it because I think it was really like in the same. It really created an atmosphere that is already in the poem, and it's really like a dream. There is like this, to me, like this unsettling feeling that you know this is a dream, but you see things that you perceive as reality, and you're never sure where you are. Which maybe is a bit connected with the horizon thing. The horizon thing is, where are we? Where am I in this poem? And I feel like this, and I love it. I really love it.
Laynie, well, I read the book, and I think I can say, I hope I'm not wrong about this, Tessa, that this is a rare poem and I'm interpreting it here, in ending sort of where it began, right? The dream, we have a problem with juicing apples, and at the end we have bruised fruit, stench of bruised fruit, after we've been thinking about mortality. So it's a poem that has some kind of closure, the others don't, but it's a dream poem, and dreams don't do closure very well. Anyway, I don't know what I'm saying exactly, Laynie, but would you respond to anything?
Sure. I feel like the tone, that there is a delicacy and a precision, and also this ferocity, and those two things coupled together is extremely powerful. I'm really interested also in the horizon seesawing, and I see it as a perceptual shift that happens when we have the awareness of the precarity of being embodied and the awareness of mortality. When it hits us, it's like the delicacy of the glass octopus that could shatter, and it's small upon a table, whereas usually octopus is in water and it's big. So everything looks different with that awareness of our ending.
just because I could listen to Jane Goldman talk all day, I want to invite Jane to add another idea. And then I want to turn to Tessa and give you whatever time you want to say more about the poem, to respond what we've said, to tell us what it means, whatever you like. And then we'll get final thoughts from everybody. Jane, where do you want to go?
I want to, well, first of all, the filthy opening stanza, which reminds me of Bessie Smith and her coffee grinder, except this is a kind of sassy riposte about what kind of equipment gives us satisfaction. But also I find really moving is the central word in the title, with. This withness, and there's a chiastic movement between these in this seven-word title, in which you've got dreams at one end and mind at the other. They're not quite the same thing, but there's a kind of chiasmus going on there. Are and in, made and vanishing. This kind of looks like balancing, but actually is like a scimitar move. It's going to put you off kilter. It's not going to slide the way you think it's going to. But yet there's this beautiful word with that somehow is a kind of cohering word that allows you to feel safe through all the knife flicks that are going on through the rest of the poem.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Tessa, tell us what you're thinking about. What's it like to have this conversation? It's a relative. I don't know how old this poem is or how many conversations you've had about it.
Yeah, I've never really had a conversation about this poem.
How'd
so
we do?
It's been really lovely and unexpected. And I think when you suggested this poem yesterday, I think I was just thinking, gosh, it is about kind of unexpectedness. I'm kind of unexpectedly here talking about this poem, and I think quite often when I'm writing a poem, what often starts me writing a poem is a kind of sense of restlessness and kind of just looking for, almost like a desperate search for an image that somehow works with my mind and the mood that I'm in, and so it's like, yeah, my electric blender, okay, let's start with that. No, that doesn't quite work. How about swimming? Oh, but no, but then death. And so I'm sort of desperately trying to kind of not desperately, but just that sense of you're kind of looking for a kind of structure for your imagination, and it's like trying to find what works, and then you end up with an image, and you say, well, shall I leave that image in the poem? No, I don't like. Actually, no, yeah, I'm going to leave it there. I don't like it, but I'm going to put it there, and then there's an octopus, okay. And so I just feel that I'm trying to balance. I really liked what you said about balancing, and. But also I need to say that it's a true story. This isn't a dream. This is I do have a small glass octopus, and one time I had a boyfriend, and one time I woke up and he was standing over me with a bread knife, and I'm not being that sounds dramatic, but I think
it does sound dramatic.
one thing I love about poetry is that you can kind of almost deadpan these quite troubling, slightly sinister events.
Quite?
And, well...
Quite troubling?
Well, yeah. and I kind of like that, and that's kind of, a poem can kind of deal with these things delicately, and I think that's what I think that's what I love about poetry, is that you can bring maybe quite troubling things, but just let them have a place and not... but then, slip. We're using the "and" that Colin mentioned into something else. Well, there's soft daubs. We can move from bread knives to a soft daub, and then we can find an octopus. And so it's like travelling around, and the horizon's seesawing, and everything's slightly shifting, but you're there. You know, you have your reasons, and it's about Thank you so much.
I love Vanishing. I think this poem, it's a small, and thus people can assume it's a modest poem, but I think it's undoing the conventional understanding or interpretation of dreams, not to coin a phrase, as wish fulfillment, which is bullshit, as we know. This is saying that dreams are actually, dreams will associate us with fears of mortality and vanishing and leaving the scene, really, and disappearing from the damn scene. And that's what this does. And so it's really kind of programmatic and bold in its way. Colin, we're going to start with you with final thoughts. Anything at all you want to add to this?
Jane's comment around that with in the title has made me sort of see that title very much like a seesaw balancing around that word with, and almost then as sort of two poems, a poem called Dreams Are Made and a poem called Vanishing in Mind, that here are kind of balanced together. And then if you are seeing it as that, then I guess like maybe the I have my reasons is the cue to the sort of second half of the poem, maybe where then it's kind of a list of reasons of having vanishing in mind. But then it's beautifully and seamlessly knotted together and kind of slipped together in the poem.
Thank you, Colin. Laynie, final thought?
Yes, I want to focus on the line, I go swimming whenever I like, though. And I'm thinking of the image of the swimmer going under the water and coming up as a way to think about the different states of consciousness under the water, above the water, and also a little bit of resistance to the fear. Even though I'm a little afraid of dying, I go swimming whenever I want.
Wonderful. Maria?
Yeah, okay, so two things. One being, this is something I associate with Tessa's work generally, is like the agency of objects, or their kind of lively personalities. The fact that it's apples won't juice and nearby bread knives rather than the apples or my apples won't juice, and the bread knives are kind of nearby, so they sort of have this aura or presence, and I like the way that Tessa kind of gives that force to things. But also I was thinking about vanishing and dreams in relation to this word syncope, Catherine Clemont's term, which is kind of like a mini vanishing of consciousness, or like, you know, it can be a sneeze or an orgasm or your body temperature dropping when you stand up or something like that. And I was kind of thinking about how, because it's like, what would happen if this was all in one stanza? So like how the stanza breaks kind of create these little syncopes, and maybe it's multiple dreams and there's a kind of stitching together there. Plus there's like theories of mind that say every time you wake up from sleep you are a different person. There's a sort of hard reset in that. So there's something about vanishing and dreams.
Fabulous. Christie Williamson, final thought?
So I'm really drawn to the last couplet, and it kind of how the stench of bruised fruit could well be something else, and it kind of almost is a manifesto for poetry, I think.
Oh, I love that. And so really shifting from dreams, where things are substitutes for other things as symbols, to poetry itself, never mind dreams. Oh, lovely. Jane?
I love the way there is a new beginning with that capitalized cotton, and I love the way those hard consonants of cotton and perfect are softened with the wool and the daubs, so that when you get to glass octopus, you see this kind of return of the hard consonants again. So it's very much about resistance to unwanted approaches, and given the context that Tessa has supplied, I think we see that anyway. This idea of a glass octopus is the opposite of what we actually think octopuses are, but also that softening that comes with puss at the end of octopus. The idea that cotton wool could be perfect when it's the kind of matter that is always breaking its own boundaries, and the poem is asserting that is the kind of perfection we need.
That's great. I hope we're going to transcribe all these comments, because they're like reviews, and it's wonderful. Irene, final thought?
Yes, it's a bit what you just said, but I really love how, in a very Freudian way, but the mechanisms dreams use are condensation and displacement, and I think it's the same things poetry does, and especially this poem to me is really based on condensing things and displace other things, and yeah, I love it.
Thank you. Leanne Browne.
Yeah, I'm just going to focus on that word made in the title. That's the same thing she was saying in a way. It's like how the dream is evaporating, but you make a poem out of it. And like, you write from the energy of the dream. You don't just write down what happened. You write from that energy. So there's this weird, eerie, synesthetic feeling that she's getting, and you get it in the poem. Like it's,
lovely.
Made.
Sophia DuRose.
Well, I've been thinking about what you said actually about the opening with the apples and the closing with the bruised fruit. But I was thinking that bruised fruit isn't necessarily rotten fruit, so it could be bruised through like some sort of trauma, and it's not necessarily like the end of a life cycle, but like something happened to cause it to change. And I like thinking about like the closure of the poem in that way, instead of like instead of a continuous line, like a referential kind of thing, like referencing the bread knife incident or whatnot.
Tessa doesn't know that I'm going to hope that we'll end this conversation with this, the thing I haven't mentioned yet. There seems to me a kind of companion poem in the book, and I wondered if I could ask you to read it for us as a way of going out. It's called An Intention to be Present.
Yeah, sure, I can
As
read
opposed
that.
to Vanish.
32.
Page 32, yes.
An intention to be present. I bought a bath mat on Sunday morning, the equivalent of not worshipping God at exactly the same time. I needed to soap myself, to peel things off and not slip over. I love the way Veronica puts on lip salve in the movie about her double life, and I certainly know what dew is and how wetness slides around a hand. The bath mat is off-white, almost grey, a bit like something to feel sad about, something to kneel down on, perhaps pray.
Tessa Berring's poems in Bitten Hair. Thank you all. Thank you, Tessa, a lot. I think we should put our frozen hands together for Tessa.